All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. I am your host, as you can recognize my voice, but tonight is a special night. It's the guys that I talk about on the podcast all the time. It's three partners. I've got all three of them online. I've had to set this meeting up with their busy schedules. It's been a long time coming. But you guys hear me talk about partnerships and them being amazing partners and us dividing and conquer and some of the tales. But tonight we actually have them. And the genesis for me wanting to have them on the podcast is that we have a text thread going on with us, and we're talking about cases or wins or who did this, and it's just dialogue with us. And these guys are exceptional clinically. Like, they are just masters in their and they all kind of have a genre in which they feel like they really kind of excel in. But just listening to them and watching them collaborate and talk about big cases, and y'all, and I say big cases, I mean 6-digit cases, $100,000 cases, and just kind of talking about what it takes to do these things. And I said, man, I really want to take, as much as Bulletproof is not a clinical podcast, right? It was started based on the business and the marketing of dentistry, because I felt like that was such a black hole in the space, especially podcasting at the time in 2016. But it was just, I really felt incumbent upon myself. I was like, I got to schedule this because everyone needs to see what these guys are doing. So tonight we have Dr. Shiven Gandhi. If you're watching this on YouTube, Gandhi, raise your hand. Hamilton, you can't raise your hand when Gandhi. Dr. Andrew Hamilton, and then Dr. Andrew Currie. And Currie, have you been, I could have sworn maybe you have been on the podcast before. There's been 200 episodes, so maybe not. Maybe you were there with someone else.
Maybe
I dreamt that.
Chimed in briefly, or I've prepped with you, and because I knew some guests who were coming on a little bit.
Maybe that was it. Yes, actually, you did introduce me to one that you had. So Currie has been my partner since partner 2 times now. It's a longer story there, but we won't unpack that one there. Maybe I have in a previous pod. But Currie, you signed on with Atlanta Dental Spa what year?
I joined Atlanta Dental Spa in June of 2012, and we partnered for the first time in 2014.
Right, and then re-partnered again in
2016,
17. Okay, yeah. The story there was basically there was a partnership breakup between me and a founding partner that I had, and Currie was joining on as the third, and that dissolved, and so he had an out clause, exercised it, and then once I was 100% owner, we went back to the table as him being partner. And then Dr. Hamilton introduced you ran the GPR for MCG or whatever we call it now. What's the dental school even call it now? It changes names every 6 months. But tell us about your background a little bit, and you have a big following. Everywhere I go, people are like, Hamilton. I know Hamilton. So it feels like you've trained like most of the GPR crop across the nation. So tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've been affiliated with the GPR at MCG for a number of years. I actually participated in the program when I first graduated back in 2000, and then reconnected with the program back in 2007, and actually became co-director and then director of the GPR AHD branch program that they have down there, and have gotten to meet a number of people, a number of amazing dentists, a number of amazing students, including 2 of the people that are present here now, Dr. Currie and
I was going to say, Currie, isn't that how you introduced? Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. We met in 2010 when I did the program from 2010 to 2012, and that was kind of right around the time that Hamilton was starting to do more of his part-time attending, and he kind of graduated into the leadership role there shortly after I left. But yeah, that's absolutely how I know Hamilton and Gandhi. Actually, Gandhi followed shortly after I did, so I got to see him a little bit in the beginning, but then as I was coming back doing part-time, like Hamilton used to do, but at that point Hamilton was full-time there, so the 2 of us were always keep an eye out for the next best thing coming up in the next crop, and Gandhi.
You know what I call him, Currie, on the pod, and everyone knows it now. We all use it. People at Summit, thoroughbreds.
Thoroughbreds, indeed.
We look for thoroughbreds, right? And I always say I have an eye for good thoroughbreds, and you were the first thoroughbred for sure coming through. And I was like, this guy's a partner material, right? And then obviously Hamilton, and then shortly thereafter, Dr. Gandhi. And you guys listening may have heard all of their names because Currie, you run a lot of lectures, and I know you lecture for implant companies and BioHorizons, right? And done a lot of stuff. Gandhi, you've done a lot of stuff with Botox, and I mean, didn't you do a composite kind of continuum?
Mostly no, no, I did not.
No,
actually.
okay, well,
but
you should. You should be
photography.
doing
No, I did a photography.
Photography,
so
okay.
A lot of photography training, Botox, and just.
And Hammy, you did a lot of the Maxi stuff, right?
Yes. I was one of the key lecturers.
Am I saying that right, or did I just
the Maxi course?
Maxi course.
No, you're good.
Yeah, Maxi. See?
Yeah.
There you go.
So and Gandhi, you're heavily involved in the Hinman and such, which you, Craig, and I are going to speak at. I think that was thanks to your invitation, coming here in the spring.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
You've got a pod area, huh? You guys are getting with the times.
So there's going to be a podcast lounge on the Hinman floor this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have a bunch of different dental podcasters, and we're excited to have you guys there.
Is it going to be bottles and models?
You're just gonna have to wait.
The wrong kind of
man.
models, just like tooth
I know.
models.
Mouth rinse.
Yeah, right.
All right. So yes, I'm glad you guys, thank you, number one, for taking time out of your evenings and talking more shop. I know you've been talking shop all day, but it's a different type of shop because it's a lot of like just growth-minded dentists. As you all know, we've been doing this for a long time. We've got a mastermind, the summits, which actually all three of y'all have been to the one in, I can't remember where, California. I know
Houston.
Yeah. So going back to the kind of the like I said, the reason for doing this podcast and me saying, I really would like to get you guys on because I think there's no better way to collaborate, or listen, I should say, to the collaboration that goes on behind the scenes. So many times Craig and I will have conversation like, shit, we should have recorded that. That would have been a great podcast, And so that was kind of the same like light bulb moment for me. I was like, I really want to get these guys on, because here's the thing of what I've seen and just talking to dentists and obviously, being highly clinical for 17 years is that, dentists don't like the word no. No one likes the word no. But sometimes we see, and the average dentist will do the crown of the month or the crown of the year, wherever it's called, right? Because we don't want to hear no. And we know that's kind of the layup. So it takes a different level of dentist to be able to A, have the skill to be able to provide comprehensive care. But then B, I always say the bigger one is almost being able to communicate that and distill it down so that the patient, once it needs it, has to have it, right? So I said, and I was talking to Dr. Gandhi today about this, is that big cases, in my opinion, and I want you guys to chime in wherever you want, but we're going to kind of go through an outline of from the start of someone thinking they need treatment to all the way down, seeing you guys, entering the office, seeing you guys and doing bigger complex cases where there's, implants and veneers and crowns and BDO changes and all sorts of things where it's a multidisciplinary case. And so, yeah, so I think it starts online. And that's the reason that Currie, in the beginning, I always was like pushing on you. And now you're just like literally awesome on camera. But if you can remember back in the days when it was like 2014, you're having to do videos. You're like, dude, really? Why does this guy keep telling me to do videos? Is because I think the process starts there with your experience with your experience online before you get to be offline, right? So we start with education. I always say it's the act of reciprocation, or the law of reciprocation, where you're providing so much value offline before you've ever met that person that you're almost pre-vetting them to come in. So it's like they can just tell the office looks amazing, the website looks amazing, the experience offline was amazing. So you're almost getting them ready that this is going to be a different level and different care of experience, and potentially a different price tag than what you may have gotten from the dentist down the street who says, hey, let's watch that in perpetuity. Right. So I think it starts offline. I think then Gandhi gets into kind of your world where it's like, then you're getting the records collection and the photos that you have and the way you present it, doing the diagnosis, then doing the presentation, then using tech to help you. And at the very end, I want you guys to give us even some CE that helped you get to where you are, because we get that question a lot. Craig and I do. What are the best CEs out there and you guys are way more on the pulse of than I am. From a clinical aspect. So does anyone want to chime in or add anything to what I've just said?
I think you're spot on that. The having a big online presence as far as a number of videos, I'm very appreciative that you forced me out of my comfort zone way back in the day. And it's still my least favorite place to be, but I understand the value of it. You know, like I don't like being in front of a camera, but I absolutely have seen dividends on dividends on dividends on every single video I've ever made, most of which are kind of off the cuff, me just talking like I'm in a consult. And that's really what I found to be the most effective for people is don't treat it like an infomercial, treat it like a consult where you're just talking to the camera as if it's a patient and you're just giving the normal explanation of why they need a fill in the blank, whether it's a bite guard or what an implant is, or, you know, what TMD is or a root canal, whatever, doesn't matter. But like talk to them as if they're in the chair. That way, when they already kind of have that patient chair side experience and they kind of know what to expect when they're sitting across from you. And when I talk to people routinely now, they're like, oh yeah, I watched, you know, like 19 videos about like of yours before I ever decided to make an appointment. So I feel like I've already kind of had this talk, which honestly makes all of the rest of my talks that much easier, because if they watched me 19 times, like I said, I'm not following any kind of script. I'm just me talking. And so I don't have to ever remember what I talked about. It's just how I feel about dentistry, you know? And so I can just reiterate what they've already heard me say. And, you know, the whole thing of, you know, you got to hear something 5 times before you learn it or believe it or whatever it is. Same kind of thing as far as enrolling a case or being, I don't like to use the term selling a case, you know, but we all understand that there's some aspect of that. And a big part of it is just hearing over and over why this thing is good or why this other thing is not as good, or what are the questions and materials and the angles that we take on this style of treatment. And then they believe in our philosophy before I even have to talk them through it, because they've watched me talk about it 15 times. And so it just makes my life easier.
The thing that jumped out, and I want you guys to, Gandhi and Hamilton, I want you to jump in. The thing that when I was listening to you is that so many dentists, Currie, I love the advice you just gave, is that sometimes perfection of doing is the enemy of like executing, right? And if like, oh, that wasn't perfect, I'm not going to do it. And it allows people to say like, I'm not going to do it because I can't do perfect videos. I think the biggest and best conversions come from just raw authenticity, which you represent. And you can have the hums and the ahs and I didn't really mean what I said. Let me try that another way. And almost like be real with someone there. The other thing that I was thinking about when you said that is, how much time do you think you have saved? From a clinical aspect, a clinical consultation aspect, because someone says, I already know X, Y, and Z, because you recorded it one time and then you got to scale that forever, right? You probably have saved, you got to get right to the nuts and bolts of it because you didn't have to go from A to Z. You got to jump in at L and then go to Z.
A huge thing is if you can get your team to use like an iPad or a video, like a screen of you where they can pull it up while you're not in the room. So I'm, you know, a big part of what makes us special, or one of the things that we're really proud of as Atlanta Dental Spa, is that kind of white glove service. You know, we do more doctor face-to-face time. You're likely literally going to be rolled out to your car by the doctor in the wheelchair after your extraction or whatever, you know, like we're
after your
there.
Sedation, not with every extraction.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if we sedate you, we basically get you to your car door, you know, making sure that you're under our care the whole time. But like, you know, part of our whole thing is that the amount of time that you get one-on-one with us. And so I would every day have the same post-op pep talk kind of before a procedure. And then once we got a video of me doing it, I can just have the team show a video of me. Once I'm done, I can show up in the room and be like, did you have any questions about any of the post-op instructions that I just gave you? You know, where like I can save 10 minutes of my life every day.
That's awesome.
In perpetuity, you know, and and honestly, it's great in the sense of like, if I'm 5 minutes behind because I'm doing another thing over here, the team can kill that 5 to 10 minutes in a very productive way that the patient doesn't feel like they're stalling. There's like more face time with me, just having the same post-op talk I've always had, because it's the same thing no matter what surgery we're doing. It's all just principles of inflammation and stuff that we're working against, you know, pain control.
Totally. And it almost gets frustrating too sometimes, when not frustrating, but you're like, man, I get this, when you get the same question over and over again, you're like, man, this is like Groundhog Day sometimes, right? And that's a way to circumvent it and make it like I said,
and the Groundhog Day moment is like, that's as soon as you have that feeling, like start making a list of videos.
Start making a list.
The Groundhog Day feeling is that's your video list.
Hamilton, Gandhi, anything on that?
I mean, the key with the whole, go ahead, Gandhi.
No, go ahead.
You know, and I can't begin to state how important all this stuff, and echoing what Dr. Currie was saying. You know, the education part of this is so key and so instrumental, and it's the most important part of actually getting these people to understand why they need to do what they're doing. If you go ahead and get those videos out, over half of the questions that they're going to be asking you are going to be answered right off the bat. And so you can really get into the meat and the details of what you're going to be doing, whether it's an implant case procedure or whether it's a cosmetic case procedure. The patients will already be prepped and ready to go with some really, really good questions that is ultimately going to lead to them understanding what's going to be in their best interest as far as moving forward goes.
And they feel like, do you ever get people saying like, I feel like I know you, Dr. Hamilton?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gandhi, Gandhi.
It's crazy. One of the coolest things is when patients come in and they say, oh, I saw you in that video. And, and so that's why I'm here. And so when
they ask you about your hair product, right? They ask you,
what
product they're like, wow, your hair looks exactly the same.
Gandhi's had the best hair since day one. I don't think I've ever seen a hair out of place.
DJ Brazier, man.
I'm wondering, are you?
Am I what?
The race? You say the racer, Currie?
Razor.
No, DJ and Brazier.
Oh,
DJ and Brazier.
DJ and Brazier.
When we were doing an office party, I asked for DJ and Brazier to be our music host.
Gandhi has some DJ skills.
Perfect in Brazier.
So it's always nice when people come in and they're like, oh, they already, there's a sense of familiarity with that. But the sweetest thing that any of us can do, and I feel like in the beginning, whenever I first joined Atlanta Dental Spa, I spent a lot more time in my consults, but I don't spend as much time as I used to. And I think it's partly because, number one, you have to listen to what people are telling you.
Let me put a pin in that for a second. Would you say there's been an inverse relationship? You know where I'm going with this? That sometimes there's an inverse relationship with almost sometimes how much time you spend versus how much is enrolled. I'm not saying it should be a race to the bottom where you but sometimes spending an hour in a consultation is only going to, Currie, and I'm going to say it here, unsell the treatment. So we're not afraid to say the word sell here in Bulletproof land.
Well,
I know some dentists have a visceral response, and I've battled that since day one, but who gives a shit? It is what it is. Well, everything is sales.
Ourselves too,
right? You're selling the benefit to them because you see the other side.
Yeah.
Literally, you can see that person and say, "I can see you done and complete and happy and healthy. Like I need to sell this to you because it's to your benefit."
Right.
But it's not selling; it's educating. I get it.
Too. Right. Sure. I mean, no matter what, it's education equals selling. But it's a service industry. When they come to us, they're looking for a service and they're shopping around between offices. We have to make ourselves desirable for whatever reason, and we have to show what value we're offering. And that,
well, for the reason because there's other dentists they could go to,
yeah,
right?
Everywhere.
Right.
Atlanta's got a ton of dentists.
Right.
Sure.
So it's what is the unique selling proposition? Is it patient comfort? Is it the fact that they're sitting? So it's all those things. And when you find your superpower, you double and triple down. And that's what I feel like we have done. From I kind of managed some of that the cue being from the online perspective in order to get butts in the chair for you guys to then kind of pass the baton and then rock and roll. But it's set up for kind of getting into what we're talking about. So let's kind of walk through the life cycle. So now and we're going to talk about.
Pete?
Yeah.
Can I add one thing? Because you'd
asked
about the inverse time relationship during consult. From a personal anecdotal perspective, I felt like I would spend forever as a young dentist. I mean, I've been practicing now for 12 years, I guess. And in my first handful of years, I would have to I felt like I had to prove to the patient that I knew what I was talking about. And certainly I was trying to do higher
level. Like an overcompensation, like I'm younger, so listen to me.
And every now and again, patients just straight out say that to you, like you look like a baby. I don't know if you're able to do this. And it's like, I get that. And like, if you are willing to let me put you at ease by showing you that I know what I'm talking about, I will educate your face off until you say yes, kind of thing. I think that stuck around for longer than it should have. And it took me a while to basically have confidence in myself that I was able to do the things that I was advertising that I could do. And then it allowed me to I just had more confidence about being able to offer what I said I could, and then I just didn't have to talk so much, you know.
Well,
Like
and that's a
I was like, yeah, we can do
swagger.
this.
I think, would you agree that that's a swagger that comes like 80% of what is
Sure.
said is nonverbal? And I think you come in with a lot more confidence, right? Because you just have it. You've had more at bats, you've had more successes. And so you walk in, you're like, hey, Miss Jones, here's the thing. I've done this 1,000 times. This is what you need. And people really want to be told what to do, what is best
Yeah.
recommended, because no one
Right.
has the optics that you have. I mean, they sure as
Sure.
hell don't. Right. And so people really are just looking for guidance for them to become the hero in their story of life and you to become the guide. And not to put in some marketing stuff, but that is truly where our place is let me show you this and let me kind of tell you how to be a hero, so to speak. So I wanted to go, were you done with that, Currie? I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the fact that I think I traded time for confidence after a while. And I think if you've done it for a while, you can probably dial back how much you're talking and see if the patient needs more info, they'll prompt you. You know what I mean? Like, can you go into that one more? I don't understand. You know, like they'd be like, yeah, you need this. We can do that. We got you covered. Like, oh, they know what to do and they can handle it. Freaking great. I don't need to go to dental school about it. Like that's what a lot of people want to hear. There's definitely the type A's that need to know, need to understand, need to like have you break it down from the engineer kind of brain. Like, they'll typically bring it up, you know, right? Like they'll and you can read it on it very quickly, you know?
Right.
So anyway, yeah, you can move on to whatever, but.
And that is another thing too. And I don't want to harp on this, but obviously as you guys are masters in enrolling treatment and masters in communication and masters in dentistry, you've learned that like not everyone is the same personality. You pick up on cues that like Mrs. Jones is going to need more explanation, but the engineer from Microsoft that just came in is going to need different levels of communication, and it may be toned, maybe more direct, more technical, versus like Miss Jones is, well, all she wants to hear is that you're going to take care of her and it's going to look great. That's all she wants to hear, right?
You've got to be able to
So
read
that's where
each
I think,
individual.
go ahead, Andy.
You've got to be able to read each individual. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has a different level of education. Everybody has a different level of knowledge as far as how much research they've done, how much have they looked at the website. You've got to be able to go and engage them. And a lot of it, I mean, you rely on your team a lot for that as well. I mean, you're supposed to be kind of getting the initial gauge from them from the get-go, and then getting that information from them and then playing off of that. That's it. I mean, that's the first part of the whole process of actually communicating with your patients. Anyway, you've got to talk, you know, you have to have your team work on them first and then come in and talk to you and deliver, you know, at least some guidelines about where you should go and what direction you should be going in with the conversation.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
They are a very good, direction to give you some intel on like, hey, you know what? You should go right to the point on this one, or you should spend a little more time making comfort, right? Because she's a nervous wreck right now and she's grabbing her neck and doing all the things that makes you think. Gandhi, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think one thing also resonates is, you know, I always, and whenever I leave a consult, I always tell people, whether they decide to enroll or not, that I am a resource to you. You came here, I will be a resource to you no matter what, you know, if any questions come up. And I think that people appreciate that because they know that they're not just a number. We actually care about what their goals are, what they want, and that we can offer them what they want. And so they don't always say yes at the first go, but I have a lot of people that come back after 6 months or a year, or a year and a half, and they've like, you know what, I really like you, and let's do it. And then there's no questions asked. They're ready to go.
Yeah, you met them where they were, right? Because if you look at where people are in their decision tree or their thought process, or or where they're ready or not, like you meet them at where they are, and maybe they're just in fact finding mode, and they're not ready to quote unquote purchase or do anything. Right. And so that is great. And people can feel that, right? I always say you can sense desperation before it even gets to you. Meaning if someone's trying to sell you a car, you're running away from them. And sometimes dentists make that problem of like, I'm going to sell this full mouth case or, enroll a full mouth case. And it seems like when you really are wanting and desperate to do it for all the wrong reasons, people can sniff that out. And then those, doesn't happen is what I'm trying to say. But when you're good and you walk in with swagger and you're coming from an authentic place of saying like, Mrs. Jones, this is going to be a massive life benefit to you. I think it just keeps enrolling, and that's why you guys continue to just enroll massively. So I wanted to keep rather than going down the reason I kind of laid out that quasi outline in the beginning was simply so that we're not going all over the place, because Craig and I sometimes get on these tributaries and all over the place. And because there's 4 of us on, I want to kind of walk through. So we've kind of covered off on, we're going to go through kind of the patient life cycle, if you will. And so we've kind of covered off on the offline and the online. I keep saying that. We're covered off on the online perspective. So now we've enrolled them to come in. They're coming in as a new patient. They know they need more comprehensive work. So Gandhi, you are kind of the photo expert at the office. You guys are all really in your own right, but I know Gandhi, you just alluded to the fact that you teach courses on this. Mm-hmm. So talk about the importance, and this is where I want all y'all to jump in. Talk about the importance of photos, not only her record, but kind of some digital records and simulations, and using tech to your advantage, even from a records aggregation standpoint.
Right. So one of the things that I was instilled with this, thought process was from residency. It was to document everything that you do. And as dentists, sometimes we don't document enough. We barely document with x-rays. Most of the time when you have to send something to insurances and whatnot, they want to see photos, or you have to basically prove, for that patient to get their coupon discount on whatever treatment you're doing. You have to show what's going on. And so not only, is that beneficial, for other purposes, but just me documenting one case start to finish will allow me to show that to every other patient if I have to, so that they know exactly what the process is. Like, oh my gosh, you want to do veneers? Like, how much of my tooth are you going to shave down? What's going to happen? What's this going to look like? What's this going to feel like? So by showing them photos, they can see it immediately. And then, it also goes for, like, not every person's going to get the same treatment. So if you document everything that you do and that becomes like the norm, then before you know it, you'll have a whole database of images. And if you take videos too, you can do that. But it also helps, not only does that help for you to, translate that to the patient, but it'll help you show your team members. It'll help you in training. It'll help you in lab communication. It'll help you in every aspect of what you do.
I didn't think about that. Yes, from an insurance standpoint, if they want to use the I liked how you called it the coupon, because that's sometimes what insurance can offer. Is like, here's your discount of what your insurance pays. But yes, you're right. It can then establish it from a consultation. Like, it gives you that authority, which is what people need to see. Like, have you been there and done that? And the answer is yes. And look at all these, and these are my cases, and these are step by step. And then also in just your awareness, creating that at scale, meaning the website of just kind of like the afters. And that's what I want you to talk about too, is using photography, not only from the things we just talked about, but also getting to the benefit, right? The before and the after, which is where I think that is the money shot, so to speak.
Yeah. So what's crazy, and when I first joined Atlanta Dental Spa, it's kind of when I started doing my own branding on social media as far as just me as a dentist. Mm-hmm. And it's insane how much, I just from documenting everything that I've done, I'm not going and trying to, and this is something Gary Vee always used to say, he's like, don't create, just document. It'll make your life so much easier. So I have all these cases that I can share. And it's just, when I post something, it's here's a case that we did. This is what happened. This is, these are the challenges. This is what we were able to achieve. And this is it. And so now I actually get consults through social media, and they'll come in and they'll say, oh, I saw your case here. I saw this
from your personal branding page,
from the personal branding
That's
page,
crazy.
Or even through Atlanta Dental Spa,
which is mainly geared towards dentists, which Craig and I talk about this a lot. We always say there's dental porn sites or dental porn channels where it's like, look at these crazy preps and this jaw that I took off. Like Currie, you have your own clinical pages like Gandhi. And where you guys post, and it always says, I always know you guys are posting stuff because it says graphic stuff. It's blurred out on Instagram. I can never see it until I hit that button. So I know it's about to be like where you have like a jaw. Yeah. And then I'm like, ooh, good.
So
the jaw on the table.
Interesting enough,
protection.
As much as that is for kind of our education angle, there are those like 1 in 15, 1 in 20 consults that come in because of that page.
No way.
Like I had one a week ago that he was just like, dude, I saw all the crazy stuff on your thing. Like, I was like, maybe that's for like after you've gone through it, that's more of like an educational thing. He's like, no, I got to know that this guy can like do it. And looks like you can do it. That was wild. Like, you got to be the guy kind of thing. And I've had a few of those, and I've like one lady who I've now done hybrid dentures on and everything. She is like my biggest online fan. Like if I post something, Brandy's going to comment like
On your dental channel, on your dental, like
awesome.
on your, let's call it your clinical
on my
profile.
clinical Instagram. She'd be like, can't wait for this to be me, looking forward to it someday. And then like she'd saved up, and like we had figured out a way that where she was able to do it. She's like, can't wait for March to come, that's when my surgery is. And she was posting like, I'm doing great, like look at this transformation, like you guys are going to make the best decisions of your life. Like she's like my good internet troll.
That's
like she's
awesome.
there all the time, like constantly, like my cheerleader. It's awesome. I love Brandy for it. But
amazing.
there are those people that are actually like drawn to that. It's kind of like if you're getting your blood drawn, there's two kinds of people. You gotta look or you can't look. And it's like, I'm a gotta look guy. Like
I'm a can't look.
I watch the needle go in, right? And those people are gonna want to see that kind of stuff, and it really does. It resonates with some and it freaks out others, and that's kind of the nature of anything, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. Gandhi, you were gonna say something?
Yeah. I mean, if you actually look at my social media, it's actually geared to patients. I don't, I'm not
really.
I have everything is in the most layman terms possible for people to understand, people to use terms to Google and to kind of learn more. But it's geared to patients. I don't post pictures of bloody gums and all kinds of stuff, and it just it's geared to that. So it's working. I mean, I see the benefit, and I get people to come in and.
So basically it's undisputed that having SLR high definition type preoperative pictures and postoperative is mandatory in enrolling $100,000 case.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so a lot of times people try to get away with these, not a lot of times, probably not the dentist listening, but you see like, I've got an intraoral camera that takes all the pictures. I'm like, you can't see anything on that thing, but okay, if that's what you do, but you're playing at a different level. And so that's why I wanted to talk about photography, because I think that is a skill that you can take, you will keep your entire career and just get better and better. And it's only going to enroll more of what you like to do, because you're going to focus on your photography on the stuff you like to do, right? More begets more.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you use it in a way, like if you get a deep enough catalog and you do a good enough job categorizing or cataloging those documents or photos or patients with your team. Like Gina is my treatment coordinator that I work with primarily. Gina and I will have like what I consider a targeted consult. Like if a patient's in here for an all on X consult, and why are they an all on X? Is it perio? Is it missing teeth here and there? Is it bad caries? And if somebody's got 28 teeth and they've all got just massive cervical decay where they're just really non-restorable, or again, it's talking about 28 root canals, 28 core and crowns, crown lengthening, blah, blah. We've got like a handful of key cases per style of tooth falling apart. And so it'd be like, okay, she's got 28 teeth full of caries. When you're showing her cases, I want you to show her Vanessa, Latoya, Mark, and Sid. And it's like we have patients that had those indications previously
from your own like card catalog, so to speak.
Right.
That's amazing.
And all people who have signed off on being models or whatever, like to allow us to use their face, or at least like we've got really good start to finish before and afters to be like, that looks just like me. That also looks just like me. Holy crap, all these people look just like me. And look at all of your end results, like bang, 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 bang. Like, oh my God, I'm in the right spot. You guys fix people like me, and it's not just like, look at all the crazy stuff we can do. None of those things apply except these three. Like, just show them those three, start there, and be like, this place specializes in me, you know?
They've just done cases just like mine all the time.
Right. Like,
Bold enough.
So often you'll have patients that, I mean, you can talk to your blue in the face, but if they can't see it, they're just not going to get it. You have to have those visual cues, the adjuncts that they're going to be able to relate to and actually be able to understand that this is indeed what we're talking about. I mean, it's easy to get into the habit of talking dental speak, which, obviously your patients are not going to be able to grasp. And that's part of the art of actually talking to your patients, is making sure that you're talking on their level and not talking over them. But if you have the visual cues, if you have the visual adjuncts, then you're going to be able to, it's going to resonate a lot better for your patients, and they're going to understand exactly where you're coming from and why you're giving them the options that you're giving them. Other times they'll just glaze over, it'll just go over their heads. Like you were talking about before, Pete, about talking your way out of treatment. If you talk too much, it doesn't work. It sometimes just.
Well, I always tell our team, and Gandhi, I don't know if I already said this on the podcast, but if someone's called you and then decide to show up at your office, they've already decided that they'd like to use you for treatment. It's your job to talk them out of it. And sometimes we do that by talking, they're only waiting for an excuse to kind of not do it. And maybe that's a horrible way of communicating it, but like they've already pretty much decided they want to use you. You have to kind of step up to that challenge and take care of it. Gandhi, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I was going to say that I've actually got card cataloged anterior veneer aesthetics. So it's almost like patients come
how many
like,
times
I want it natural. Huh?
How many times do you guys walk into and I always say this from Summit Stage, like get an iPad, even if you're not going to use it, just walk in, because I think it looks high tech where you're almost saying, I'm ready to go. And I almost saw like a correlation being like, oh, this is a modern dentist. He just walked in with an iPad, right? Like what? And, obviously you want to have something on that iPad, but even if you don't, like, I think it's pretty cool just to walk in. If my doctor walks in with an iPad, I'll be like, damn, that's pretty cool. Right.
Yeah.
Even if I don't have anything dental on there, but you guys obviously are armed and ready from a card catalog perspective because you enjoyed the process. You do your own photography and you've gotten ready for being able to explain the case that you did previously. So that's part of the setup. So we'll talk about that in photos. Talk about other records that are done. Obviously we used to do all polyvinyl, PVS impressions to do stuff like that. Now that's converted into all, I'll let you guys go, all iTero stuff, but
digital scans. So we're able to get faster turnarounds too when we're able to digitally scan people, but we're also able to show them their teeth
preoperatively, right? Like you're doing even pre-op. Yep. Okay. And so what is the
version of an impression? It's like
the what?
The iPad version of an impression.
There you go. Like yes, and there is some wow factor in that.
Oh,
100%. Getting away from
I
analog.
didn't pull out your periodontal involved teeth. Like
getting away from analog impressions has been huge in our practice. I mean, it's been insane. I mean, just being able to pull the iTero out and get a baseline scan, even if you're not necessarily planning any sort of treatment right away, but just doing a baseline scan when a patient comes in for their new patient exam or comp exam, the patients literally are blown away. They're like, this is
by seeing their smile up on the screen or their teeth up on the screen.
100%. I mean, they've never seen themselves in that way before.
Have you guys ever had to use that from I mean, yes, it's wow and it's tech, but I think there's a duplicate benefit to saying, like, from a documentation standpoint, it's far superior, I'm guessing, from a medical legal standpoint of saying, like, look at this scan. Like, there's no denying where it was when we started.
100%. I mean,
versus a PVS where it's like, well, you can't really tell what's there.
Right.
Yeah.
Kreisman and I had an awesome case where it was a great full mouth rehab. There were implants, extractions, veneers, opening video, like all these bells and whistles involved. And it went great, but she had a very challenging starting point. And it went so great that at the end, she could see she hated a couple of things, and they were the only things that we hadn't touched. And it was like, and she started blaming us for how bad something looked that we hadn't. That was like one of the only 3 teeth that we hadn't addressed or whatever, because, and so I had to pull it, and it was this 3-dimensional scan that helped me because it showed in 3 dimensions where her gingival margins was, because she was like a very nitpicky person about, like, she was noticing like the zenith on her veneers were slightly different here and there. And so that allowed me to show her from different angles. That's where you started. And like, we actually didn't mess with that at all. Now all of these look awesome. And so you're all of a sudden putting awesome next to mediocre. It wasn't necessarily wrong. It was healthy, and it didn't indicate treatment. And you didn't want to add on those last 3 veneers, which is going to up your bill or whatever. So we didn't touch them. But like, that wasn't us, lady. And she had to see it physically in the 3D to be like, oh.
And had you not had that,
man, she was fired up about it. She was pissed. Like, she thought that we had done something incorrect or had messed her up. And we're like, that is how you walk in the door. And thank goodness we had that scan.
Yeah. So what else? So there's obviously then from I'm guessing that forms a nice foundation for them being able to print models. Like, I know you guys are into 3D printing and all sorts of things. So keep going with kind of the records and the setting the stage for the diagnosis and the presentation, because that's going to be the next step that I want to talk to you about.
I mean, I'm just constantly narrating what I'm doing while the patient's in the chair, just to kind of fill the void, but also to kind of use that dead air time to talk up why we're cool, you know, or where they're already kind of like half like side eye on the trios as I'm going along, because they can see and I intentionally put the laptop in a position where it's in partly their eye line and mine. So I'm able to do what I want to do, but I'm watching it like hypnotized, you know, they're just sitting there like, this is cool. And then while I'm sitting there, I'm like, so remember that 3-dimensional CT scan we just took? That's a 3-dimensional X-ray. This is going to allow me to overlap that with this, so I can see exactly what your teeth are doing, but I can also see what that looks like in relation to your bone. Dr. Currie and I can design the perfect veneer and crown and whatever for you, and then I'll work backwards to make sure the implant's in exactly the right spot. From that, I'm going to design a guy that I'm going to 3D print here, and we'll have total control over it, and we can make that implant go exactly where we want. It'll be like a bullseye, makes it super safe, super fast, very predictable. The whole time I'm scanning, because I need 2 minutes to get the scan, but in that 2 minutes, they think that we're like the, you know, Starship Enterprise of dentistry, you know, like, holy shit, these people are like, the whole thing's just futuristic as can be, you know, like I'm kind of like, you know, I mean, or we could put this thing away and I can go get like the giant bucket of goop and like take the old school impression if you prefer, like to feel like you're at home, and they're like, oh God, no, I hate that, like never again, that was just so great, you know. So it's just like a little bit of banter, which is already idle time, is a major sales pitch, and they just walk out thinking that we're like tooth Jedis, not just dentists, you know. And there's huge value in thinking that them understanding that we've already got this flow and it's all super high tech and therefore accurate and therefore safe and therefore predictable and whatever, blah, 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 blah. So it's not hard to.
So obviously you guys are a big fan, and we didn't even talk about the record standpoint from the CT. You guys are big fans of that. What would you say? I'm going to go real granular for a second. What would you say would be the ideal if someone's on the edge and hasn't pulled trigger? A, an ideal field size, and B, kind of any brands that you like. Obviously, one that we have, and don't talk about the brands. Who cares? But talk about the field size.
I'd say a minimum of 8 by 6 centimeters, which is going to be at least a full arch. Like
okay.
if you're not even sure you need a CT, you're not doing dual arch hybrid surgeries.
Right.
You don't need that level of price point, but you should do a full jaw so that you can make a full jaw diagnosis or treatment plan. You know, like if you're having a tiny field, that's not really going to be that beneficial other than a diagnostic, not necessarily a planning situation. And so if you use it a little bit, you'll use it a lot and it will open doors immediately. So if you buy the smallest thing, you're not going to be able to open many doors. You're going to wish you had bought a bigger thing. And the price difference between the tiniest field to a pretty medium to large size field is not very big. Going up to like a full head and everything, that's certainly going to change the price tag if you go all bells and whistles, but you need to be able to offer a service to the patient such as like, hey, I've diagnosed that you are a candidate for X, Y, or Z. Even if you're not doing it, you've helped enroll that bigger treatment plan, and you can give them a CD or give them a jump drive to take to the oral surgeon to do that surgery. Let me save you $500. Here's a CT. Just take this with you to the consult. And, you know, like that way, like it'll save you some consult fee and we can get this thing rolling. You're already in a better spot. Or like, if I'm trying to get out of doing the treatment, if I see something that's like, oh God, that's going to be just a freaking nightmare, then I can give away that CT for free, but like it's actually diagnostic and helpful so the surgeon can use it.
Right.
So don't charge them $500, you know? But yeah, you got to have a big enough field to see at least one jaw.
I can shed some light on it. So I got the old dinosaur CT scan.
Yeah.
Do you mean the old digital dinosaur one? You mean the one that was probably only like 6 years old? Okay.
It was, yeah. So in Highlands, so I got the hand-me-down from Buckhead. So I was rolling in with an 8 by 8, and always, you know, it was a good machine when it worked, but it had its, you know, it was a little bit finicky at times. And I will tell you that now that we have the new machine that's got a 9 by 11 field.
You can say the name if you want. I'm just not.
It's fine, but it's a bigger field, better software, and we're not only are we scanning more patients because it's easy to scan, we're also diagnosing more treatment. We're doing accurate diagnosis. And yeah, like Currie said, we're able to give the patients the discs if we need to send them. But I'm also able to, for me, like I like to do multidisciplinary, and for me, I don't always want to do soup to nuts for every patient. I like to share some of my patients, and like Currie is a fantastic surgeon, closest to me, so I like to refer patients to him. He can do the surgery for that patient. I do the restorative for that patient. but we're able to take solid quality records and we're able to share those with each other. And, it's a win-win.
Yeah, I want to give some context to what you're saying too, because there's 4 locations. Obviously, Atlanta Dental Spa has 4 locations, which many of you on the podcast know. So Gandhi runs point at Virginia Highlands as the operating partner, Dr. Currie at Buckhead, and Dr. Hamilton is at the brand new Shiny Penny up in Johns Creek. And so that's what the collaboration. So the 2 offices are only separated by about 8 miles as the crow flies. It feels longer when you're driving it in Atlanta, but it's you're not too. You guys
From
are the
Buckhead to
closest. You
Highlands,
guys are
yeah.
the closest office to
Buckhead
each other.
Highlands isn't that far.
Mhm.
Buckhead and Highlands.
It's
is
about
quite
3
close.
miles.
Yeah.
3?
But for Buckhead to
Yeah.
Highlands,
Oh my god.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's quite close. It's just
There's
people
just a
don't
lot
leave the
of this
neighborhood
going
very much.
around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's not a very straight linear approach, but it makes it to where I don't have to redo a consult. Gandhi will just Dropbox me his CT in real time. I can do a quick consult because I can just pop it up and be like, hey, do you want to do this? Look at it real fast. Yeah, I can totally do that. Send her up here or get the trios, get the whatever.
Wow.
And they can swing by if they want to meet me ahead of time, or I can call them at home and chat for a second, and then they just come straight into game day kind of thing. But even if you're not doing the big stuff, if you're doing any endo, if you're doing occasional like wisdom tooth extractions, like you really should be you should have a CT near at hand. Like this right here is literally a case that I reviewed this morning. I spoke to an attorney. I'm an expert witness in a handful of cases right now. And the underlying thing is absolutely on every single one of them, these people's records suck. Like they just did not.
Yeah.
This guy right here placed 4 implants, didn't take a CT ahead of time. He honestly probably did a perfectly good job. The patient had a really bad medical history and it was really likely to fail. It failed. And he took a post-operative CT scan. And I was like, well, if you had access to a post-operative one, why the hell did you take a pre-operative one? And it's like, I'm not going to be your expert witness in this case. That dude's dead in the water. Like,
Right.
Of course he should have taken a CT scan. The guy's
Mhm.
like, that's what everybody keeps telling me. Like, good luck. I'm out.
Yeah. It's pretty much, if you're going to pick up a scalpel, it's the standard of care to take a CT scan.
I totally
mean,
agree. And endo at this point too, I think, honestly,
Right,
with like
true.
molar endo at least, I think that's the standard of this
The
The
point.
good news is the
this-
price point is coming way down, right? Where
Mhm.
obviously
Huge.
it's being demonetized, where it's it's a race to the bottom. Technology is getting better, faster, and easier to acquire.
And
So
you're able to take your traditional Panrexes with the same machine.
Yeah,
So
Right.
there's no
same machine, right.
reason not to.
Rate limiting step.
Mhm.
It's a rate.
it's the rate limiting step.
It can.
All
be.
right, so-
You're cock blocking yourself if you don't go on.
Oh my god.
Well, and you're saying you're holding yourself back from maybe you do not want it now, Hamilton, or feel like you don't need it now, but you kind of but it opens your field, no pun intended, to what you could do down the way. Is what I'm hearing you say. Is
It's
that,
and it's a safeguard, because I mean, you need, if you're not able to visualize all these fields appropriately, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. If you do know, you're going to know when to punt. I mean, there's
Mhm.
some things you're not going to be comfortable doing. And if you're not working within the scope of what you're comfortable with, you should not be doing it. If there's somebody that can do something better than you, you need to send them off. This is one of the only tools that you can utilize that will actually give you that information.
Yeah. And if you can't do it, bring someone on your team that can. And
Mhm.
and if you're looking to grow, if you want growth around you, you want to be and so it's like this is a great
well, it's a good example, honestly. I mean, that's the reason why like Currie was brought on in the early days, because like I don't know surgery. I didn't want to do surgery. I just
What?
acknowledged that I don't even want to watch blood being taken. So like, yeah, yuck, that looks gross to me. Right. But like, this is where he lives. And so I was like, we need to get that, because if I ever got into surgery, I actually did an implant case. And implant course. And thank God I didn't ever do any implants. But like I had intentions. I was like, well, I need to do this because everyone's belly aching about having to go somewhere else. And like, and so to your point, Gandhi, if it's not something you're super strong at, like divide and conquer and bring that person onto your team.
Yeah.
You'll get the rare argument from some very risk averse dentists that if you take anything in 3 dimensions, like anything in that field, you should have evaluated at the level of a radiologist. And like, I don't want to take CT scans because if I miss pathology and they die of oral cancer, they're all going to sue me, kind of thing.
Right.
That's a thing that some people will get really hung up on. And I understand that. But at the same time, if you actually wanted to put in any effort in creating a little system on that, most dental schools in the nation will accept, and plenty of private practice ones, but I'm going dental school because if they're that worried about risk, they're also going to be cheap. And so if you call the radiology department at any dental school and say like, hey, can I set up an online account and have one of your radiologists review my CT scans? They're like, sure. And it's a Dropbox or portal situation. It's very easy. It's usually like 75 to $100 for a radiologist to give a full-on radiology report on any CT you send
No
them.
way.
And, which we do occasionally when we have any kind of pathology stuff or any concerns, but we're a little more trained on looking at CT scans, but only because we put in a little bit of effort. Like if you buy a CT scan and you put in a little bit of effort and like receive their training, you'll be able to do a perfectly good job at evaluating it. It's just a stack of two-dimensional x-rays. Like we all know how to look at x-rays. But that's the counter argument. If anybody's like, I don't want one because I don't want to be responsible for like missing something, it's like pay $75, build it into the fee. Most people charge $500 for a CT. We don't. We charge a lot cheaper because I don't want that to be a barrier or whatever. But if you charge $400 and 75% or $75 of that is to pay, you know, Dr. Calasingle at MCG to read your thing, like she'll do a great job. You'll get a report in like 3 days. You're doing a super good job of being a thorough dentist. Now you went from being like a total head in the sand guy to I've got every I dotted and T crossed, like above and beyond diagnosis, and super covered my ass. And as far as the medical legal situation goes, so everything in the CT world is now accessible and affordable, and it's kind of inexcusable if you don't have it once it's too late.
Okay, tune in next time to where we're going to continue this of part 2 of this podcast. We're going to go even deeper into some of the presentation, technology, and even get the recommendations that these docs have used from a continuing education process to get to where they are. So tune in next time, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.